Rachael Kirkconnell reveals doing podcast to stand up for herself. Rachael Kirkconnell is going through a dark time in her life. Bachelor Matt James ended their relationship nearly a month ago and then proceeded to share it all on social media, just 3 hours after it happened. A blindsided Rachael did not even have time to process the split before it was put in front of the world to see. She made the decision to go on the Call Her Daddy podcast, where she cleared up a lot of rumors floating around. Now she's sharing why she did it and how she is feeling now. What did she say? Keep reading to get all the details. Rachael Kirkconnell reveals why she did podcast. Rachael Kirkconnell was not expecting her relationship with Bachelor Matt James to end so abruptly while on a trip to Japan. She first went on the Call Her Daddy podcast where she spilled all the tea about her breakup with Matt. Now, she's had even more time to process the split and is sharing how she's doing with people. Rachael reiterated that she was surprised by their breakup. She said, "The whole thing's just been really weird because 1, I didn't expect anything at all. Then 2, just the way he went about it and the way it was so public was really hard to deal with and go through the motions. It was one of those things where I'm not registering." As she continues to go through the motions and try to move on, Rachael also shared why she went on the podcast. She said she realized a lot of women could relate to what she was going through. She also went on there to stand up for herself, find closure, and try to move on. Plus, she knows that a lot of fans were invested in their relationship, and she felt they deserved some answers. How she's spending Valentine's Day. Rachael Kirkconnell revealed in a previous interview how she plans on spending Valentine's Day. She is planning on heading to Las Vegas with some friends. Really, Rachael just wants to distract herself, which is also why she says she has been into reading books. She's avoiding rom-com movies for now until she is able to move forward after her breakup. As for Matt, he bought a one-way ticket to Kenya. What do you think about Rachael opening up more about her split from Matt after a 4-year relationship? Stay tuned for more updates on all your Bachelor Nation favorites. Jamie is a nurse and a mom of boys whose true passion is writing. She loves reality, cooking, and paranormal TV. Jamie has been writing online for several years. Rachael Kirkconnell reveals doing podcast to stand up for herself. Rachael Kirkconnell sat across from the microphone, her hands gripping the edge of the table. The quiet hum of the recording equipment filled the small studio, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she had control over her own narrative. This wasn't an interview where she'd have to measure her words carefully while someone else dictated the direction of the conversation. This was her podcast, her voice, her truth. A new chapter, Rachael's journey to owning her voice. It had been years since Rachael first stepped into the spotlight as the winner of The Bachelor, but her experience wasn't the fairy tale many had envisioned. From the media frenzy surrounding her past to the ups and downs of her relationship with Matt James, Rachael had endured more than her fair share of scrutiny. For too long, she had felt the weight of other people's words, narratives that didn't belong to her, stories that were written without her permission. But now she was reclaiming her voice. Launching a podcast wasn't just about having a platform, it was about healing, about setting the record straight, and about standing up for herself in a way she never had before. She wanted to create a space where she could be unfiltered, where she could share her side of the story without fear of misinterpretation. And more than anything, she wanted to inspire others to do the same. The motivation behind the mic. Rachael had spent months contemplating this move. The idea had come to her in the quiet moments when she found herself frustrated by the misinformation circulating about her. There were endless headlines dissecting her every move, assumptions about her relationship with Matt, speculation about her personal growth. "People think they know me," she said into the microphone, her voice steady but passionate. "But they don't. Not really. They know fragments, pieces of a story that's been told from someone else's perspective. And I think it's time I tell my own." It wasn't an easy decision. Putting herself out there, again, meant opening herself up to more criticism. But the alternative? Staying silent while others continued to define her, that was no longer an option. Facing the past, embracing the future. The first few episodes of her podcast, titled Unfiltered, would focus on the journey that brought her here. She wanted to be honest about the mistakes she had made, the lessons she had learned, and the ways she had grown. She wasn't interested in glossing over the tough parts. If anything, she wanted to lean into them. There was a time when I thought the best thing I could do was disappear, she admitted. I thought if I just stayed quiet, if I stayed out of the way, people would move on. But that's not how life works. Growth doesn't happen in silence, and I refuse to be afraid of my own story. Her decision to do a podcast was met with mixed reactions. Some fans applauded her bravery, calling her an inspiration. Others were skeptical, questioning her motives. But Rachael knew that no matter what she did, there would always be critics. That was part of being in the public eye. What mattered was that she was doing this for herself, and for the people who had ever felt like their voices had been drowned out by the noise of others. Matt James, a supportive presence. Throughout this journey, Matt James had been one of her biggest supporters. Despite their ups and downs, he knew better than anyone how much Rachael had struggled with the pressures of public scrutiny. He had seen the nights when she lay awake, overwhelmed by the weight of other people's opinions. And he had been there when she decided she was done living for anyone else but herself. "I'm proud of her," Matt said in an interview when asked about Rachael's podcast. "She's taking control of her story, and I think that's one of the most powerful things anyone can do." While Rachael made it clear that the podcast wasn't about their relationship, she also didn't shy away from discussing it when it was relevant. The reality was, they had been through a lot together. They had navigated challenges that most couples never had to face, and through it all, they had chosen to fight for their love. Empowering others through storytelling. Beyond sharing her own experiences, Rachael hoped her podcast would become a platform for other women to do the same. She planned to invite guests from all walks of life, women who had overcome adversity, who had reclaimed their power, who had found the courage to stand up for themselves. "This isn't just about me," she emphasized. "It's about all of us. It's about knowing our worth and refusing to let the world tell us who we are." Her first guest was a woman who had left an abusive relationship and had since become an advocate for domestic violence survivors. The conversation was raw and emotional, a powerful reminder that everyone has a story worth telling. A message to the haters: I won't be silenced. As expected, not everyone was thrilled about Rachael's podcast. Some accused her of trying to stay relevant, of using her platform for self-promotion. But Rachael wasn't fazed. "I knew this would happen," she said with a small smile. "But here's the thing. I don't need anyone's permission to speak my truth, and I won't apologize for doing so." For years, she had let fear dictate her choices. She had let other people's words shape her reality. But that chapter was over. This was a new beginning, a new Rachael, one who refused to be silenced. Looking ahead, the future of Unfiltered. With each episode, Rachael felt a little lighter, a little freer. She was finally shedding the weight of other people's expectations, stepping into her own power. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. "This is just the beginning," she promised her listeners. "I don't know where this journey will take me, but I do know one thing. I'm done letting other people tell my story. From now on, I write my own." And with that, she pressed the stop button on the recorder, a satisfied smile on her face. This was her voice, her truth, and she was finally ready to share it with the world.